You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Hello, everyone. Well, this is going to be an extremely interesting stream because JF has given probably the most boring interview I have ever heard in the history of the world. And what I don't understand is if you have a guest on your show that is clearly making international headlines because his wife, quote unquote, is missing, would you really want to talk to him about science and the history of his career and the internet? Because that is exactly what happened on Ignoramus. I obviously have forgotten how to talk tonight. His show on Rumble. And they're sitting around talking like it's nothing out of the ordinary that JF has a wife, the mother of his two kids, is missing. The police have been knocking on his door for at least multiple days in a row, early in the morning. We don't know where the children are. And more importantly, we don't know where Alora is. But here they are, like chin stroking, pondering the future of the internet. So I would not blame any of you if we're dropping out right now. It is something, really something, this thing. And I don't know if there was an agreement ahead of time. I'll come on your show, but I just won't talk about Alora or the situation. It's a no-go subject because he does touch on it for about a second and a half. But that was clearly came from him and not the interviewer. So has he gotten the idea that it's been very bad for him to give these interviews? Because my prediction is he's going to just keep giving more and more interviews. He can't help it. His ego needs the attention too much. He's so excited that people are paying attention to him. But at the same time, on the other hand, I do think he is worried about the future of a possible investigation. And it's hard to know where this investigation could go. So I'm going to watch with you as much as I can stand of this. But before I do, I want to look at comments. Got some interesting comments. So CPC 36 says, I do find her humor interesting. He means Alora, and she has far more of a genuine personality than JF. I don't say this to suggest he may be right, quite the opposite. She likely proved very difficult for him, and he murdered her. He killed her because she was genuine. Thought that was a very interesting comment from CPC 36. From TTT 666. Oh boy. In JF's, and I say, oh boy, because of the 666. I don't know if that was chosen or just assigned. In JF's own word, He knows how the police work, knows their methods, etc. I'm sure that he is either guilty and trying so hard to look innocent, he is inadvertently giving off the signals of guilt, or he is innocent and thinks that looking like a psychopath killer, like Dexter is cool and has benefits of the, quote, killer's bounty, unquote. So he's trying really hard to look guilty. At this point, it seems that he has neglected the fact that no matter how intelligent someone is, the effects of the subconscious cannot be controlled. And that's, of course, the idea behind lie detectors. We can't control minute movements in our hands, sweat of our palms, things like that, respiration, heart rate. Okay, so Foul Chilied Puppies Died says, I'm an artist and a former fine arts professor, and for some reason I've never bothered to comment about your logo, but I love it, always have. I remember Diane Downs. I'm from Seattle. Holy crap, how home of many nutbag serial killers. So thank you. Yeah, originally my show was called the Wolf and Sheep podcast because so many killers talked about wolves and sheep and subject of wolves in sheep's clothing. So it really is supposed to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. That is my logo. So let us get into it because this thing is long. And so he comes on like almost near the end of the show, like two plus a little over 2 hours in.
All right. Let me load this thing up, see if we can get JF on in the room here. Yeah, I'm excited for this because I've never talked to the guy. I'm pumped to get his story. Definitely want to talk a little bit about that internet, whatever it is, internet wild west. It wasn't really the Wild West because it took a couple of years for it to, because all these platforms started in what, 2008, 2000.
Yeah, because that's what he's making news for. Him being part of the internet Wild West. Not that his mother of his children is missing and that he didn't do anything, didn't phone the police for 4 months. That's why you'd want to talk to this guy.
2010, and then it took some years for that to happen. Yeah, I'm going to Israel in December 2024. Yeah. All right, let me cue this music here, and then we'll get Jay.
Used to.
Sorry, such a drag. I just wanted to go forward a little bit.
He's a biologist. He's the host of JFG Tonight, and it says in his Twitter bio that he's a veteran of the great Twitter ban war of 2018 to 2022. And remember, we talked about this last week. He's been credibly accused of starting the Israeli conflict as a distraction from other things that have been going on and things like that. So let's get JF on in the room. Hello.
I love this term, credibly accused.
Yeah, that's right. JF, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. Yeah. I mean, I saw some reports out there that you have taken over Hamas and sent men in on paragliders to storm Jerusalem. But I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that those charges have been lifted.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So basically, wanted to talk to you about I know you've done a lot of interviews about the controversy with Mama JF and stuff like that. So we're not going to talk really about that at all. But I wanted to ask you about your book and about, so just a little bit about my story. I don't know if you were watching the stream before this, but I kind of didn't come to social media and the right wing until around 2019 or 2020. So there was this big era before that, blood sports, Gamergate, all the, whatever the kind of the right wing or the alt right was around that time. But you kind of came to prominence during that time period. So I don't know.
I'm not going to talk about anything that anyone's interested in. I'm going to move right to the topics that somehow no one is interested in. No one at all. That's a winning strategy right there.
Let's just start at the beginning. When did you start? When did you, get to social media? When did you start creating content online?
I started creating content online before the invention of the internet. In 1995, not the invention, but it becoming a public thing. I was 10, 12 years old. I was running bulletin board systems, which were networks of computers that were existing back then on phone lines. And you would call to a bulletin board system to leave an email, but you would have to disconnect for someone else to connect so they could receive their email. That is where I come from. I'm a guy who's first on the internet, and then I talked about all these subjects that eventually made me an e-celeb. But I'm first and foremost a guy of networking and a guy who believes that the internet.
Would you call this guy a celebrity? So as I'm talking, I hear like commotion, like drum banging outside my window. I don't know if there's some kind of massive protest going on in New York or if it's something else, but it will keep the stream interesting for sure.
Is one of the most beautiful inventions in human civilization. Totally changed the world.
Wow. So you got in at the ground, on the ground floor. And yeah, I agree with you on that, it's an awesome place. I mean, there's it's a tool. So there's going to be bad things. There's going to be good things. But it completely revolutionized human history and human communication. And so can you explain just a little bit more about what they use phone lines, these things that you started on? Just explain that a little bit more. I'm not really a tech guy, but.
Well, in 1993, if you want to talk to people through a computer, you have to.
Are you guys all bored out of your minds? Do you have any interest in JF's long history? Because I don't know how much more of this we can watch, but there's one part where he says there's no evidence against me, which is, I think, very interesting. So instead of saying not that I didn't do it, it's often something that you hear people who end up getting convicted of crime say, there's no evidence against me or they have nothing on me. It's very different than denying doing it. But we're supposed to assume that they're the same thing.
To click on connect, you have to put a phone number in there. And then you hear the modem of the computer starts doing. And then you were connected. And that was establishing a connection. And back then, the modems that we had were a way for computers to communicate over phone lines. And they were literally communicating over basically beeps, bips of noise that they were emitting through the phone line. Things have evolved since, and we have these.
You know what? I'm going to amaze everyone. There was a time that the internet did not exist at all. And that when we wanted to reach each other, we would actually write a letter or we would phone each other up. And the phone, you'd have to have one of those circle dials, and it made sort of a clicking noise on each number. Anyone else? Any other old people in the audience remember that? Oh.
Super high bandwidth now, but that was what the precision of the internet was. Before the internet was a thing, that was how people connected. So I saw the rise of Web 1.0. I was actually a conservative with respect to Web 1.0. I found that the internet was kind of annoying. I found that the BBS lifestyle was more of a family system that was keeping people close and that were people that was keeping minds who thought alike together. But eventually I got used to Web 1.0 and the idea of websites, and then there was MIRC and ICQ, these social networks that were rising in the first era of the internet. And then I saw Web 2.0 rise with Wikipedia and collective contributions to content. And I knew that this was a revolution, because it was just a matter of...
See, because JF saw that this was going to be a revolution. He was so in touch. He knew that the computers was going to change everything. Unlike the other people who saw the internet coming and thought, oh, that's not going to change anything. It's just going to, we're just not going to use that technology, and it's going to go the way of the dodo. Okay. The ego is amazing on this guy.
Of time before this became live, because I would say that the internet of Web 2.0, its characteristics was that it was massive in its collaborative and collective capacity, but it had some failure in terms of quick stuff, news, stuff that is current. But eventually, the web of social media rose, and eventually the internet became this thing where you care about what happened in the last 59 minutes, but not more. But that was a long path from 1995 to 2018, basically. Because until we had live video streaming available to everyone, there was still kind of a dominance of the news narrative over controlling what's happening now. There was still power for CNN left to grab, because they were live, they were listened to.
As opposed to now when CNN has no power. I would say the major news sources still have a lot of power. Anything that looks official is going to have a lot of power, right? Because I was thinking about Adnan Syed and Stephen Avery. And there's recently Andrew Hamill, who I had on as a guest, wrote a piece in Quillette, 2-part piece about Adnan Syed's guilt. And a lot of people were really shocked and was like, I didn't know there was all this evidence against him. I felt like saying, where have you been? This stuff has been out forever. But as far as Stephen Avery, same thing. When convicting a murderer, when a documentary comes out, it gives it just some weight that YouTubers don't have.
As they were speaking. But when the people unlocked the power to be able to speak without filter, to be able to speak and be heard within the second by the whole world, that changed the world. That really brought a form of decentralization of news processing that I found fascinating. Ooh. And I wanted to be an auditor of this system. I wanted to see what does this system lead to that's different from the old system.
All right, I'm getting almost to the end of what I can take, but your interview is a disaster when there's better questions from your audience than the interviewer. JF, would you box Andy Worski? I would say that's a pretty good question. At least I'm interested in the answer. I am so bored watching all this. So was the idea just to have him on to get eyeballs on your channel and kind of grab his true believer? Because he does have his fans, believe it or not, amazingly. But I can barely take much more than this. I'd say about 2 more minutes, and I think we're going to move on to something else. And this will be much more of a hangout chat stream.
And it really, for however much time, 80 years, 60 years, it was only the networks that had the ability to go live. And you mentioned a second ago that you saw that it was going to be revolutionary. Did you see it from day one, or more in the internet 2.0 era when it started?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see?
I think he's going to say day one. What do you think he's going to say?
From day one?
For me, the revolution was happening in 1993 when modems were invented.
Yeah. Before he even knew about computers. When I was holding a pencil, I thought there was going to be this great internet highway. I looked at the lead on the pencil and the eraser, and I thought that one day everyone would have a pencil and it would go through the super internet highway. Although I did not know the word for internet then. Because of course, right? He's all-knowing, all-seeing, the most intelligent person in the world. And he says in this interview that he believes his scientific theory will be the accepted theory in 100 years.
And I was just like, I remember in a BBS that I was hosting. So I was hosting a center where maybe 10 people total were connecting throughout the month.
Yeah.
One of my users, to support my line, to support my phone cost, came to my home and dropped a $10 bill under the staircase. And I remember my father looking at me and being completely blown away by the fact that something economical could come from the computer world.
Right.
That was my first super chat before the internet even existed.
Yeah. Wow. Did you? So you said.
So he was getting super chats even before super chats existed. He's so ahead of his time. People were just throwing money at him because they just knew immediately how brilliant he was. Are you guys getting sick of this? I'm all right. 5 more minutes, 2 more minutes, and then I think I can't take much more.
So you were like 10 or 12 when you first started doing that. Had you always been into tinkering and we'll get to the science, the biology stuff in a little bit, but had you always been into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, because we have to get to the science and biology. That's absolute. You have a guy who didn't call in when the mother of his child went missing. He says he dropped her off at a gas station, knew she was going to go out into the wilderness, and wasn't concerned when he didn't hear from her for months and months and months, and no one else did. Because I can understand if, say, you have a bad breakup, something, and you don't expect that Allura will contact you. But maybe would you be checking in maybe with her parents or her friends or someone? And when the police finally come to knock on the door, would you be like, oh, what a bother? I like to sleep late. Why are they bothering me? No, you'd be like, out of your mind with worry and guilt. Those are normal reactions. Why didn't I say something? I thought she was okay. Oh, what could have happened to her? And you would think you would devote every single stream, every single interview to getting the word out. Has anyone seen Allura? But it's much more important for JF to talk about his book and the internet and all this other stuff. How can you even be thinking about this stuff? Reminds me of the McCann case. Madeleine McCann, her parents dined at the tapas bar at the hotel resort and left 3 infant children. I think Madeleine was going to turn 4 very soon. Just left them alone and said it was like dining in your backyard. And when she got kidnapped, quote unquote, they had no guilt. They said, oh no, we did the right thing. We felt very safe. No guilt, no feelings of personal responsibility. Same kind of thing here. So when Madeleine was missing, they never looked for her. And they were jogging and playing tennis. How does JF have the strength to sit and do these live streams and these interviews? because he's a low emotion guy. Roberta, what are you talking about? He's a low emotion guy.
Well, 8 or 9 years old is when I get my first contact with a computer. It was a very outdated computer, even by the standard of my age then. It was an Apple II with, when you were opening it, there was no graphics or anything. There was just a programming language that was popping out, which was called GW Basic. And I'm like, wow, isn't...
Shout out, who had an Apple IIe or 2C? What was that? Like what the first, the first bunches of Apple computers? And you could play one game on it. At least I could. And this is very, very early when they were trying to teach us how to use a computer. It's like a glorified typewriter. It's like Lemonade. Does anyone else remember that? I just can't take anymore. But that's really the issue, is how does he find the strength to do any of these interviews and any of these live streams? I get that he had to take a couple days off, not for his own emotions after she supposedly left, but because he had some cleaning to do. But where does he find the strength? I think I've told this story before. My hometown, a bartender had walked across the bridge home, and she's seen on the bridge, and she fell into the icy river and sadly drowned. But her ex-boyfriends were like, falling apart. People who barely knew her were falling apart when the whole town was looking for her. How is JF just not concerned at all what happened to her, even if he had nothing to do with it? Wouldn't you be racking your brain? Wouldn't you be walking around the area giving out flyers? What is he doing? I mean, this is an attitude we haven't seen before. Yeah, this is what I was talking about today. I was looking up, thank you, Spanish. Celt, is it? Just wonder what it's going to take for the one time to get a warrant to search his house, for the one time to get it. Right. So I was looking up what it takes to get a warrant today in Canada. And it's very similar to here. They have to have reasonable suspicion, and they have to state what they are looking for. And with his story, I don't know how you put that together, but certainly I'm sure he's given some weird statements to investigators that would have piqued their curiosity. Right. And J-Bet says she's intellectually challenged person too. Right. How does he think even socially she's going to survive out there? I mean, this is so unprecedented, off the charts, crazy. Never even been seen in true crime, this kind of attitude. I mean, can anyone think of another case where someone's missing husband, boyfriend, wife, girlfriend went, I don't know, they just left. They said they were going. I said, see you later. Okay, I'll take you to the gas station. I'll be sure to drop you off in front of the cameras. I think what might be more interesting is I'm going to take a quick break, and when we get back, let's go back to his first statement. What do you think? His first statement to his fans, and rewatch that and see how his story has changed. I'm going to take a short break, pull it up. When we get back, let's go over that. And if you guys have questions or comments, just throw them in the regular chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it. when we get back. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Okay. So yeah, let's look at his. I could not believe, but what was that interviewer thinking? Like he didn't want to hurt his feelings? I just don't understand why you'd have someone on who's making cute headlines and like it would be like having Prince Andrew after the Maxwell Epstein scandal on and asking him about his Stife teddy bear collection. Like, we don't want to, right? We don't want to ask any hard questions. Just that. Just like, tell me, is it true? Because you know that he has to have his bears in a certain order before he goes to bed every night. So here's the classic. And it's so interesting to me also that he wears the same outfit pretty much or close to it almost every stream. This is exactly what he was wearing in the interview we just looked at. Does he do that so it's hard to tell when things are filmed? Or does he just like wearing the same thing over and over again? Or does he have like 10, or does he like something and buy 10 of them? Any JF fans in the audience?
Not at this point. It's I've been wanting to keep it relatively calmer and less public, but I've been forced by the various events because people have discovered about it, and so I might as well talk about it instead of letting rumors develop and all of the messy information that can stem from it.
J-Bet, you're asking about, sorry, one second. You're asking about his fridge? But did I go too far? You were asking about his fridge and what's happened to his fridge. Here it is. Sorry about that. My understanding is that he said he got his fridge super clean. That's the part I heard. I did not hear that he replaced his fridge, that he got it surgically clean. Am I wrong on that? Did he buy a new fridge? I know that he did some serious drywalling. Let me know in the comments. So she's saying, yeah, I thought he replaced it. Good to know. I'll look into that. I just remember him saying, I got it to, a surgical, like surgically clean. Okay.
So yeah, it's the disappearance of Mama JF. Mama JF has been disappearing in the sense of not leaving.
So she's been disappearing. So it means that so that does not sound like she's coming. That could be a language thing too, but odd. She's been coming back and leaving, coming back and leaving. And now she just left and didn't come back. So he wants to make it a very regular, usual thing.
Not leaving any contact, not leaving information about where she was. And I titled my episode The Cost of Liberty because I didn't want any of this. I'm just a family guy, and I've always been wanting to provide and secure for people.
I'm going to shock you all here, but I think he's telling the truth. I don't think he wanted any of this to end this way. But when Mama JF or Alora was went against him and wanted to take the kids and destroy the family, or was destructive, because that's the word he always uses around Alora and women in general, is how destructive they are. And he can handle anything in a relationship except a woman who wants to destroy, right? Be destructive. So I think he is. I think he's telling the truth here.
All around me. But there is one thing I cannot do in our society. I cannot stop you from doing crazy stuff. I cannot stop you from exposing yourself to risks when you say the words, I want to do it. When you claim your own liberty, you are on your own, and I cannot do anything to protect you. And so that...
So what he's saying is, like, once you're out of this all happened not on my watch, even though I dropped her off at the gas station. Like, you couldn't foresee that someone with developmental challenges, intellectual challenges, would have a hard time with just a school book bag, like tiny size bag, living in either urban trekking or in the wilderness, that she couldn't survive out there. You didn't think that it might be dangerous to the extremely dangerous, fatal to the mother of your children?
I don't know if Mama JF is in danger. I don't know where she is. But at this point, I'm forced to talk about it because people are spreading rumors on the internet. So I'll just give you my my perspective on all of this, and people are accusing me of murder on the internet. It's like, you guys don't know. You guys don't know the police. I've been speaking with the feds on an everyday basis for a couple of days now, for maybe I don't know, maybe.
So they've brought in the feds. Interesting.
A couple of days. For a couple of days, I've been speaking to the police on a regular basis. So it all stems from Mama JF, you guys know, and I've stated it publicly. In June, she left. She didn't want... it's not even clear why she left. And she's done it in the past. You guys have seen it, who have been following the show for years. She wanted to go away. So that's all we often know with Mama JF. She wants to go away. She had done it once and had come back to us.
Right. So see, once again, it's all on her. And it only says good things about him that he let her go, because he's that kind of understanding, free-minded guy.
Weeks after, and you remember, she came on the show on the day she came back, and she said something along the lines of, well, I thought you didn't want to be with me anymore. And so... and I said to her, no, you left of your own will. But she says yes, and then she says yes, but I thought you wanted me to leave. That is sometimes the state of delusion in female minds, and I can't do anything.
Right. It wasn't that it was a DV situation and he was being horrible to her, and she went to her parents for a while and then foolishly came back to him. It's just that she misunderstood. He always wanted her there. Probably did kick her out at one point.
Anything about this. I have zero control over this. If we were in the society, the Christian society of 1920, maybe I could file some report and say, hey, my wife is a little crazy. She's a little out there. Can I control? Can I own her, basically? And I'm sure that there were... basically, you didn't have to file that paper in 1920s. Because in the 19...
When you're really in love with someone, would you really call them crazy and out there? Isn't that the time that you use euphemisms like eccentric? Free spirit. But I don't think this guy is capable of love. I think that he is, what do you call it, antisocial personality.
In 20s, this was called marriage. But we are not in the 1920s, and we are in 2023 where we have an experiment going on in society. What happens when you let these females do whatever the fuck they want? Well, what happens is that they sometimes make bad decisions. So in June, she left, and And 2 days after leaving, so she left and she had a whole plan. She had bought camping material. She was on her way to some sort of survivalist trip. From what I understood, it looked like she was preparing for life in the wild. She promised me when...
Okay, so that is very, very different than what he said recently. Oh, no. Right? Oh, no. It looked, what about it? So if you're just going to say it looked like she was preparing for life in the wild, she had camping gear. I've already been over this, but one more time. What kind of camping gear did she buy? She bought a lighter and something to sit around a fire? Would you be like, wow, you're amassing an arsenal to live outdoors? This is a nonsense story. For how intelligent he likes to think he is, it's not a great story to tell the cops or the feds.
When she left, that she would always be reachable and that I would be able to reach her to deal with all of the official papers. You know, that she owns a lot of stuff and sometimes I need her signature. And I was like, and although, you know, we do have legal remedies for this, I was like, if you totally disappear, you might put me in trouble on some bills, on some, you know, getting utilities and everything. So she promised to me that she wouldn't fully disappear.
So she promised that she wouldn't fully disappear. And then 2 days later, she changed her mind and said, forget it. I don't care about anything I own. If any important business comes to me, if she really owns so much, I don't care about any of the debt maybe I've accrued. Just let my credit be ruined. Forget about it. I'm going to live in the wild.
And she went away. And 2 days later, she talked to me on the phone and sent a message. But by the way, everything I tell you is things I have told to the police. So it's not, there's no secret coming out that you guys are hearing. It might be secret from a public perspective, but it's all things that the feds have been knowing for a couple of days. So the last message that she sends me in June, 2 days after leaving, and it had been apparent, I think I may have been in contact for a couple of times during these 2 days. So I was sure that she was progressing through whatever trip she wanted to do. I knew that she was still alive. But 2 days after leaving, she says, I have changed my plans. I will not.
Did you hear that part where he's just said, I knew she was still alive? So it's very important for him to say, I knew she was still alive. No, you just say, I heard from her. And unfortunately, that's the last I heard from her. You wouldn't say, and between those 2 days, because I was in touch with her, texting with her. And gone, I think, is that first story, right? That story about how he tried to call her and the reception, she tried to call him and the reception wasn't good. So then they switched over to text message. Perfect way to communicate if you're trying to play with a timeline and you're trying to imitate and you have someone's phone trying to imitate them. It's a little hard to leave a voice message, no?
Not hold my promise toward you. I will not be reachable. And it's like, okay. She says, I have a new plan. And I'm like, does your new plan involve any sort of...
Right. And remember, she only has dreams, but she normally doesn't have plans. But now she's made 2 plans. She's made one plan and abandoned it. And now she has a new plan. And he's like, oh, so you're planning to go out into the wilderness and be a survivalist? You have 2 infant children. I'm going to have to raise alone. Okay. All right. No probs. You may die out there. And what he's concerned with is not that she will die. Did you hear that? That it will look very bad for him. For him.
of attack against me or the family. Because you guys know how important that is to me. She says, you don't have to be worried.
So he's not worried about her health. He's worried about that she will attack him or the idea of his family. So this is what makes me think this started as a fight about the kids, that his family was in some kind of jeopardy. And being a family man is very important to his image. Not that he ever talks about his kids in any real way. He doesn't have to show them, but like, oh, I spent all Saturday with my kids. It was wonderful. You don't hear that from JF. It's like a political idea for him.
Reid, my new plan does not involve you. I'm just going to change cell phone. Now, I knew that she had left without any sort of electronic tracking. You know how the police can track you with your credit card, with your debit card. She had left with nothing but her phone. So when she said that to me through text, I concluded, okay, she's going off grid. You know, she's going full survivalism. And kind of in her fashion. I mean, that's the way Mama JF is. So changing her phone, to me, it meant I'm dropping potentially my own identity behind.
Right. So it didn't mean I don't ever want to hear from you again. If my boyfriend, husband, whatever, says I'm going to live in the wild rather than attend to our children, and I'm getting rid of the phone, I would be like, think it was like, I can't reach you ever again. And there was nothing that sparked this off, right? This was just a dream of Alora's that she wanted to do. And she thought right after the birth of her second kid was a great time to do it. Sounds plausible, right, guys?
I'm potentially disappearing in nature. I'm potentially, she could be anywhere from there. And that's what I was explaining to the police. You know, Mama JF, you remember the story she told on her video on YouTube where she talked about crossing the border in Spain and in the enclaves of Spain and North Africa. Mama JF is a fucking extreme, like 007 level of like fugitive mentality. And I was kind of telling that to the police jokingly, half jokingly, but it's like...
Okay, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's a one of my favorite quotes from JF about Mama JF. Don't bother looking for her because she'll just be putting out false traces, right? Hiding from cameras, everything. She's amazing. She's a master of disguise. She's Donna Hemming, like Doug Hemming. She's a mistress of illusion, that Alora, among other things. She's a champion woman survivalist and a mistress of illusion. I'm going to take a quick break when we get back. J.F. Gariepy's most ridiculous quote. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Let's look at some of your comments before we get way into it. I thought that J-Bet says going into other countries with a passport and access to funds and money is not the same thing as living out in the woods. Right. He claimed that she got into some country without a passport, but if she had done that, wouldn't she have some kind of record of doing that? Do they just be like, oh, you don't have a passport? No probs. Come on in. You just have to bribe us. Like, what kind of country are you talking about? You can barely... I mean, does anyone remember A Million Little Pieces? What tipped off people about that? I read that book. It was one of the first weeks I was at Oprah. And I thought every sentence was so over the top and ridiculous. I couldn't believe anybody believed it. But what some coworkers were talking about was that in the beginning of A Million Little Pieces, the author, James Fry, this is the memoir that became Oprah's book of the month, which was a huge honor. And it would just basically guaranteed that you would be rich and successful for the rest of your life, at least rich, if not successful for the rest of your life. So that was chosen. And not only did she choose that book, she was like hammering home about how it was like the most important book ever. Everyone in the office at the magazine was like, this book is incredible. You got to read it. And I just could not. And it's so melodramatic and ridiculous. So what tipped people off about that book being possibly untrue is that he gets on a plane with no shoes, bloody face, teeth missing. If I'm remembering right, I may be confusing it with another dentist story in that book, but I think I'm pretty close to it. And I thought, like, no shoes on the plane. That might be some of the more believable stuff. Like, becomes friends with a mobster in rehab, and the mobster sees like what a man's Mannyy is, and the mobster orders like a huge dinner for all the people at the rehab, like a lobster, shrimp, over the top dinner, and the rehab has no problem taking this mobster's money.
She's a
good times. And then of course it came out that like he made everything up, and then Oprah publicly chastised him on her show.
A professional fugitive who doesn't commit crimes. So it's like, she's gonna be hiding from you as hard as she can, while also not having anything to reproach to herself. But that's just how she is. So
all right. So besides the answer, that's just how she is, because I've seen and I've watched as much of footage of Alora as I can. Now I don't know her, didn't know her, but do you notice how there's never any explanation as to why, besides it being a dream and besides it being just how she is, although everything I've seen of her has been very social, why it's so important for her to be unreachable. Why was it so important for her to have no cell phone? And as a woman, that's really like a lifeline if you're traveling alone. Why was that so important? And why did she think, what was more important than her kids and her family? Why was this trip more important, this trip? And did it have an ending? And did it have a destination? Doesn't seem like it. It seems like she just decided, like, I'm just going to just start walking this way with my small backpack that apparently, like my school book bag, which apparently made JF think that she was ready for the wilderness and full survivalism.
Oh, I mean, and so from there, I'm like, I'm going to drop myself behind. I'm going to disappear. You're not going to be able to reach me. So that is what I've been knowing since June. And of course, you're faced with the big...
Right. So you're not going to... And he never said, why? Why do you want to do this? I'm not suggesting for all you JF fans... I'm not suggesting that he should have stopped her, although I think it's odd that he wasn't concerned about her at all and didn't at least try to talk her out of it. But why didn't he ask why? He didn't want to know why. He just said, oh, that's Laura. She's like that. She's like that. She does things that just make no sense whatsoever. Because if you're in his position, that's the only thing you can do is normalize it and say, yeah, she acts like no human being or no mother ever in history has ever acted.
Should I call the police? This is a willing woman, a willing adult woman doing her willing stuff. So I've not called the police because in my...
Wow. I so want a t-shirt. Willing adult woman doing her female stuff. Is that what he just said? Let's just hear that again.
This is a willing woman, a willing adult woman doing her willing stuff. So I've not called the police.
Willing adult woman doing my willing stuff. Oh, how you doing, Roberta? I'm just just doing my adult female stuff. You know how it is. You know, all that stuff that we women do that's so different than what men do. Willingly. And I'm doing willingly as opposed to the women who do it where they're forced to do it. Right? Funny.
Because in my view, there was no evidence of criminality. There was no evidence of distress. It looked like, to me, someone who has decided to go survivalism. Will I report someone for being survivalist? I mean, this reminds me of the Facebook post. You know, as one of your loved ones gone to survivalism?
Right. So no one's suggesting that you report her to the police for being a survivalist. What people are suggesting is that no one's seen her yet. No one's heard from her. She doesn't have a cell phone, according to you, though I'm not a big believer in that story, but okay. Yeah, out of concern. Not because she's made this plan that you should call the police immediately. This is so crazy. This is even crazier this time around with a little bit more distance. And now that he's given more interviews, it's certainly more telling, and it looks even more ridiculous than the first couple times around with this statement to his fans.
As one of your loved one bought too much camping material, that is literally one of the Facebook book posts. But I don't want to be in the society where buying camping material gets you reported to the feds. And I am bound to Mama.
Well, according to you, she didn't buy much camping material, right? Remember, she bought a lighter and something to, sit around a campfire? What the heck is that? Why would you be alarmed by that? And what about those purchases would make you think that she was going for survivalism? But, we're all just low IQ normies. We don't understand. We don't know. We don't understand, right?
JF's interest, because I've loved her and I still love her, and I still consider I consider myself allied to her forever. Forever, no matter what she does, even if she goes out there getting other boyfriends, I consider myself tied to her forever. So at this point, I'm in front of this information, and I've decided that this was not warranting a call to the police in June. And I've spoke to her.
Hold on one second. We just got a fantastic. The interrogation will be Can you imagine the interrogation? This is when you really wish JCS, what a Jim Can't Swim, still making so many videos. I think they are still making videos, just not quite so often because YouTube's giving them such a hard time, which I understand. That's can you imagine what the interrogation was like? So what do I call you? Do I call you Jean-Francis or Jean-Francois? No, you can just call me JF. Okay, JF. So your girlfriend? Yes, I like to call her my wife, but yes. So she left her 2 children to go full survivalism. Can you describe what full survivalism means? She wanted to see how much she could survive in as many as in the most hostile of conditions. So she went alone? Yes, of course. She went alone. What was I supposed to do? Call the police? Now, is it criminal to go full survivalism? Oh my gosh. I really hope that if it ever gets to that it will be made public. It would just be one of the most classic interrogations of all time. Absolutely.
Spoken to her family, and they thought similarly, this is Mama JF. She is an out there woman, and it's not the first time she does this. In the absence of any evidence of harm or that she's doing something evil to someone else, there's no reason to call the police. And in fact, we even had someone in the family talked loosely to a federal investigator who was friends with us and just asking, what is this? Is this a disappearance, or is this just a woman? Just a woman doing whatever she wants. And the investigator had actually, from what I heard, this is not an interaction that I had myself, but someone who was worried in the family spoke to an investigator and said...
right, because it's not him, because he wasn't worried, right? This is a nonsense story. I don't know what the relationship is with Alora's parents and JF, but this sounds totally made up. So what he's saying is, the reason I he's giving excuses for why he didn't call the police. So it's like, what am I supposed to call the police? Is it now illegal to buy a sleeping bag, even though she didn't buy a sleeping bag? But still, it's not illegal to look at the sleeping bag and buy a few tiny items, right? And then he's going to say, oh, yeah, they talked to some investigator. And he said, oh, yeah, that's totally normal for a mother of 2 young kids to go out into the wilderness. And that's just a woman doing dumb woman stuff. You know, women, they're so dumb. They really need a man to tell them what to do. I mean, that's what he's saying, essentially. So he's connecting it to his politics so that he'll whip up his base.
Look, those are the facts. It's a woman. She leaves like this. She wanted to leave. She gets herself equipped with camping material and all. Is this a disappearance? Is this something we should signal? And the investigator had said, well, no, this looks like a consensual trip. So I was reassured that not only was my judgment.
Okay, let's talk about this consensual trip. Consensual trip. Consent is something that happens between 2 people. So you're saying you didn't consent to it. You just said, okay, that's what you want to do. And right? This is a trip from her own, right. It was her idea is what you're saying. I had nothing to do with it. I had no input in it. I'm out of the story. Don't look at me, investigators. That's what that's supposed to be. But I mean, consensual trip is such a hilarious. How do you take a consensual trip? I mean, I guess if they went on a trip together, it would be a consensual trip between the 2 of them, agreed to go on this trip. But according to him, she left alone and he dropped her off gladly because he does not get in the way of liberté, right? Consensual trip.
Converging toward the fact that Mama JF does not need help and that she's a free woman. She can decide to do this. And also there was these social signals reinforcing that I wasn't the only one thinking this. Other people.
Right. There was the social signals from this friend of of Alora's family who happens to be a detective. Wow, that's handy. And the detective said, oh, Alora, your daughter's missing? Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't go looking for her. No probs. Probably nothing. Oh, she's got 2 small children at home? No. This happens all the time. This is just a woman off on a consensual trip. In fact, if I were on duty as a detective, we even have a box. We right? Foul play, consensual trip. It's number 2 box, consensual trip. So what he's saying is, I was convinced by other people that there was nothing going wrong. That's all this is about. Why he didn't call the police, why this had to be called in by a stranger. And I've heard it was the neighbor. It may be someone else. But what really is the mystery in all this is Alora's parents. Why aren't they out making pleas for her return? And why didn't they did they call it in and no one paid attention? Or was, I don't know, were the police kind of finessed into not worrying about it early on until 4 months went by?
People were thinking this also. So that was the state in June and July, but then, the months pass and now we're in October. When is it that worries are justified? And so there was a building up of stress in the people who love her. And my position has always been to all of these people, to any friend of Mama JF and to any
Think about it. Has anyone ever taken care of a feral cat or a wild animal? I mean, I would think if you put out food and you don't see this, like, so if you take care of, say, I don't know, I'm just going to use the example of a cat. You're living in the country and you put out food every day at 4:00, the cat comes. And you put out food one day and the cat doesn't come. You're not going to be worried about the cat. You're not going to go looking for the cat. A cat. This is a human being, mother. Supposed to be the woman that you love or loved if the relationship is over, which it sounds like it was.
Any person involved, my position has been, I saw her go. I saw her wanting to go. And so I don't need to call the police. But if you feel that it...
I saw her wanting to go. I would love to know what Peter Hyatt, the statement analysis, would say about this. I wish I would love for him to weigh in on this, because this is like the kind of situation where you wonder what they see. There's so few things that we know. And someone wrote in the comment section, I'm sorry I didn't put it up, but that I was wrong and that he's not obviously not a suspect. And I would like to know how that is obvious. So often the public and the accused themselves are the last to know. And I don't believe JF when he says he's being kept in the loop about the investigation and that he has all this proof that he dropped her off at this gas station in front of cameras. That sounds like an absolutely contrived story. But he knows she wanted to go. How is knowing what she wanted to do proof of life or proof of how she is or proof that she's okay? She could be terribly injured, sick, etc. Does she take any medication? Did she take her medication with her? How did she plan, if she takes medication, to refill it? How did she plan to eat, live?
It warrants a call to the police. I respect you, and you go ahead and call them. And I will not say who ended up calling, but someone ended up noticing that somehow Mama JF was missing, and maybe knew about me. I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Oh, did you guys hear that? Were you guys listening? What was weird about that? Does anyone want to guess in the chat? Let me see. I'll just give you some time. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah, I think he's talking about the neighbor too, Sergeant. But he said something really telling right there. All right, I'll go back and play it again. This is really...
I saw her go. I saw her wanting to go. And so I don't need to call the police. But if you feel that it warrants a call to the police, I respect you, and you go ahead and call them. And I will not say who ended up calling, but someone ended up noticing that somehow Mama JF was missing, and maybe knew about me. I don't know. I don't know.
Someone ended up noticing that Alora was missing. So, according to you, she's not missing. She's out tripping, having a good time. Right? So you're acknowledging that no one knows where that she's actually missing. According to you, that's a foolish notion, and that she's just out in the wilderness. Survivalism. But someone ended up noticing. And he also said, and then he said before that, I'm the one who who witnessed or noticed that she wanted to go. So that's something that you hear. She told me that she wanted to do this and I dropped her off. But you can't physically witness someone's wants and desires.
Know exactly how it all happened, but someone ended up noticing, hey, there's this girl and her loved ones don't know where she is. And so they made a call to the police, and this launched a whole investigation that I've been involved in for, I don't know, maybe 4 days, 5 days, I don't know. But the feds are...
See? And then his attitude becomes very somber towards the investigation. He is hostile towards this investigation. As much as he says that the investigators Googled him and know he's not a suspect and believe him. Look at that face. He's like, it's been 4 days. Does that sound like 4 glorious days of just telling them what happened? All I can do is tell them what happened. I know I wasn't involved. I can prove all these different ways that I am not involved, but I'm very concerned as to what happened to her. But that isn't part of it. He's only concerned with that this is a hassle. It's affecting him. It's interrupting his sleep. And he sounds angry at the person who called it in.
Are coming regularly at my house. They are waking me in the morning. I sleep late, and all of my loved ones sleep late. We're just that way. We are computer programmers living in the night. That is just what we do. And I'm a man of the internet. My show is at 7 p.m. Eastern.
He's that special man of the internet. I love when people say these things about themselves. Like they're so unusual. I am the type of person. It's just the kind of person I am. I like to breathe air. Likes to sleep late. Wow.
Time, and it's not even the end of my day. So they wake me up every morning. There are days where they come once, where there are days where they come twice. There's always a truck of the feds in front of my house, and there's lots of people making jokes right now on the social media, like, Jeff, where did you hide the body and all. I knew that this was coming to this no matter what, because we live in a society that just can't accept the cost of liberty. The cost of...
Say, is the cost of liberty, is he talking about his own liberty, really? What he had to be free, what he had to do to be free from a destructive woman? Because that's what it's starting to sound like to me. This is the cost of liberty. I had to do this. I'm sorry. I don't think he's sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that Allura ever met this guy. That's what it sounds like to me. Don't you understand that this sometimes as a man, a fully realized alpha man in this society, sometimes when your woman won't get under control, you have to protect your liberté at all costs. Isn't that really what he's saying?
Of liberty is you're going to have a bunch of females make terrible decisions. But no, I have not killed Mama JF, and I would be very surprised that I'm even considered a suspect.
Okay, so I did not kill. He doesn't use her name. He waits to almost halfway through to say that, and he says it as a kind of afterthought. And he would be very surprised as the last person to see her alive, besides that Moncton sighting, on the 19th, in an outfit that he can't describe. and only remembers. So I think that sighting is a false sighting. I think someone saw someone. I think they just mistook whoever that was for Alora. I think she was definitely gone by the 17th, if not earlier. That's my own theory, knowing the little that I do.
In any way. Because I have left records, I have left electronic traces of my dropping her alive in front of cameras of a gas station, and there has been plenty of electronic records of the fact that she was alive many days after leaving me, after asking me to drop her at a certain location.
Oh, that's a little slip. So first he says, after leaving me, and then he corrects himself and says, oh, after she asked me to drop off at a certain location. I don't think he expected this at all. I think he thought that he could just say, if anyone ever asked, she just left. She left to go out in the wilderness. But what is the burning question that I have is, what was he telling Alora's parents, and what was her relationship with her parents if they're both alive? So I've heard that they have the kids. When did they get those kids? And what was he telling them in these 3 or 4 months that Alora was missing? Was he using her phone? Was he sending text messages? Or did he totally get rid of it after the 19th? Did he have a story? Was he telling her? Reminds me of that case in Texas where they made a movie about it with Shirley MacLaine. And it's the guy who directed Slackers. He's from that area. And they made this, of course, another Hollywood movie that makes a convicted murderer look great. But he befriended this widow's, who was a grandmother, befriended her, this gay guy who was also a mortician. And he put her body in the freezer. And when people asked about her, he said that she was on vacation, she was here. He had so many different stories about where she was. So my question is, was JF doing the same kind of thing? And by the way, that film got that murderer, got his conviction reversed, and he was living in the director's house for a while in Austin before they resentenced him and he went back to prison. But I'll never forget reading a comment from someone who worked with him as a mortician who said that he always wanted to find a rich widow and exploit her, that he was very creepy. But in the film played by Jack Black, he looks like the greatest, most fun person in the world.
And yes, that there are so many cameras these days and credit cards purchases that I can prove. I would be very surprised that I'm anyhow considered a suspect, but the feds are still very thirsty for information. So they keep coming back. And honestly, I'm very impressed by the quality of their work, but it's like they understand also that I'm a guy on the internet, so I'm not I have a high security home. I'm not going to let them in, but it's like, okay, they want every possible detail they can have about Mama JF because they are on this program of finding Mama JF. And it's fascinating to see a bunch of professionals like this who really are interested in her safety. Let me tell you, I'm hostile to the government in general.
See, now he's going to go into how he's hostile. See, he's aligned himself with investigators So he's one of them. He's one of the good guys. You often see people who end up being convicted of crimes like this give interviews like this where they praise law enforcement and say what a great job they're doing and align themselves with law enforcement to look innocent and how concerned law enforcement is, but he never says he's concerned. And right at the moment where you think he would say, oh, I'm very worried about Alora or whatever he wants to call his nickname for her, he says, oh, I'm hostile towards the government, because he's definitely not hostile towards investigators. He thinks they're doing great. I think he's really talking about the investigators there.
But I've always known that within the police force, the vast majority of policemen are excellent, just excellent workers and professionals. And I see it in my interactions with them.
Okay, it was the murder of Marjorie Nugent by Bernie Tiede. The film is Bernie. Thought that was going to drive me crazy. That's what I'm talking about. But her grandchildren have written about how awful the film was and how off base it was, as the portrayal of their grandmother as a bitter, unliked, mean woman. And they say that was not their experience at all.
They understand everything. So so that means they're coming to me and they want to know exactly what she said before leaving. They want traces of where were you when you dropped her, who could know her, who are her friends. And it's like I pulled Mama JF out of a lifestyle, and I never really got acquainted with this lifestyle. You know, I'm not the kind of I don't have rest.
See, this is why I can't help investigators with where she is or what she's doing, because he's not acquainted with these horrible, low status, unimportant people. But the investigators are very familiar with him, and they understand that he's a very important person of the internet. He's an internet celebrity. For those of you just tuning in, we're talking about JF Gariepy and his new interview out where he's not asked anything of import about his missing girlfriend, mother of his children, Alora Patron. I'm going to take a quick break. Thanks for hanging out on the stream with me. I will be back in a quick break. Go get some snacks, get a drink. We may be here for a little bit. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Okay. It always feels so good when I do these streams to take a little break from JF Gariepy. He's a lot to deal with, right? He's a handful. Kind of overwhelming. Just the self-involvement and the lack of feeling for anyone, and the bragging, kind of hard to deal with.
Respect for human beings, especially not homeless druggies, you know. So I'm not the kind of guy who will approach a female and become friends with her male friends. So what I did with Mama JF is I extracted her from her misery. and from her lifestyle. And I brought her to a greater lifestyle, cleaner, less craziness. So that is what I've done. And so when they ask me, where could she be? Is she friends with this guy? Is she friends with these guys? It's like I have just a general idea that Mama JF is a super social creature of Montreal. And that's what I've been telling them. So that's been so the feds being extremely, on their.
She's a super social creature of Montreal, but no one's seen her anywhere.
Path of we need to save everyone. We need to save everyone. And I'm like, it's amazing to see the conversations between them and me, because I'm actually less motivated at finding Mama JF than they are. I've never requested any of this. I want to be clear. If Mama JF is out there listening to this, I want to be clear with you, Mama JF. I've not been requesting an investigation against you. I've not been trying to send the feds after you. I've not been wanting to do this episode even. I'm forced to do this episode because there are forum posts right now that your face is on whatever the feds have published. And then people are looking at my tweet today, informing people about this. And they're like, well, look, he calls her Mama JF. He doesn't even call her by her real name. So he's not really interested at them finding her. It's like there's a lot of interest to wade in here. First, by naming Mama JF a way that I've never named her publicly, I would only be misleading people. The fact is, everyone who interacts with...
You'd only been misleading people by stating her name, even though it's out. Not only in the press, but the police have put out her picture, her name, her height, her weight, her eye color. But she can't consent. He often goes to that too, that she can't consent to it. Right? She can't consent to it. So, because he's Mr. Consent, Mr. I'm going to prey on a 19-year-old woman with the mental capacity of a 10 or 11-year-old, and so much so that the police have to forcibly remove her from my home. And then he complains that the police didn't care about his injuries when they had to burst into his home and forcibly remove this woman who he wanted to inseminate. Oh, isn't that every woman's dream? To get inseminated by JF.
Me through this platform knows Mama JF as Mama JF. So that's her name for you guys. I'm not going to reveal her real name because honestly, I don't even know if she wants to be found. And that is something you have to wait when you're in this situation. I am a bearer of the interest of...
See, she might not want to be found. It's much more important to everyone who loves her. It's much more important what she wants than that her parents, her family, her friends, anyone that cares about her. It's much more important that she not be found if that's her wish, which I don't know if it is her wish. I just know that she didn't want to have a cell phone or that cell phone, but it could be her wish. So it's much more important that she be able to disappear without a trace. That doesn't sound sus at all. I want to make sure that she can successfully disappear without a trace and without knowing whatever happened to her, because I have no curiosity at all. And I don't care if she's alive, injured. And I don't care that my children know what happened to their mother. This is crazy. Totally crazy. Thank you so much, MW, for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I really thought that this this new, I really could not believe this interview was this boring. And do you I'm just curious what you guys think. Do you think that he is starting to have conditions on interviews, saying I'll give an interview about my book, I'll give an interview about science, the internet, my career, but I will not talk about the subject of Alora anymore? Is that what happened? Or is this guy really just so disinterested in the thing that every single other person is interested in, meaning the interviewer? Let me know.
Mama JF. Maybe she doesn't want to be found. Maybe she's on a huge trip, whatever, thinking, going to parties. Maybe she's going to Woodstock in the US. I have no clue. But maybe she doesn't want to be found. And that's part of her liberty that I have to defend. I'm not going to act like these worried families who want to help someone more than they want to be helped. Because one thing I have learned that...
How do you know she doesn't want to be helped? You cannot know that. She could be, kidnapped. Anything could have happened to her. Not on, because you're already saying it's not on your watch. So you're saying you trust her, which is fine, but you trust every single person in Canada without knowing them to treat her well because she's just who she is, excuse me. And he's like, and the resentment he has towards grieving families betrays to me maybe a little resentment towards Alora's family. I'm not going to act like these other worried, grieving families who are worried sick, wondering what happened to their loved one. Not me. She probably doesn't want the help. Don't bother. It's really could be like a comedy skit. It's so unexpected, outrageous, nothing we've seen before.
At enormous cost in my life is don't help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
Sorry, is it getting a little glitchy?
And so I'm like to these feds, I'm like, please understand. Right? She's going to be playing with you, sending you on false traces. She's going to have her hoodie.
Isn't that interesting about this? This is like one of my favorite JF's quotes. She's going to be sending you on false traces. She's going to have her hoodie up, avoiding cameras. But isn't it interesting that JF assumes that the investigators care more about themselves and their success than he can't understand that they are out looking for Alora's well-being and making sure that she's okay. It's so foreign to him to care about another human being that he just doesn't get it. She's going to be wasting your time. She's committed no crime. Like, they're out because she's committed a crime. No, they're out looking for her to make sure she's okay. But of course, it portrays what he's worried about, which is that they're out to solve a crime. And if you've committed a crime, you would be worried about that. You know what? I may just stop sharing this and try to connect again and see if it's a little less glitchy. Sorry about that, guys. It's an awfully long stream. Let's see if it's any it's
crime. She's going to be playing with you, sending you on false traces. She's going to have her hoodie, hiding herself from facial recognition cameras everywhere she enters. She has dropped all of her electronics behind. She's basically 007, but she has no mission, and she's not fleeing you guys for a crime that she did because she's a good person. She's not going to commit a crime. That's the situation. You guys want to have fun finding her to be sure that she's safe, you go ahead. But I know will when I see it, and her will was to go out there and for whatever period. I didn't know when she left whether it would be.
See there, once again, he's visually talking about her will, what her will is, and how is will is something someone taught, she was planning this trip for years, but how do you see what someone wants? Right?
Be a 2-week period like last time, or whether it would be a 2-year period. She could be on a container traveling toward Morocco right now, and she could have dealt with the locals at the port. She could have talked to a boat driver and give him some money and get on the boat. Who the fuck knows? I mean, and so that is the situation. And to people who are saying, well, he doesn't make all efforts to find her, he doesn't name her in her tweet, or he doesn't show a photo of her. I'm not going to show a photo of her or name her when this is not my quest. This is not my quest. I had a visual confirmation.
It doesn't have to be your quest. You should, even if your relationship is over, you should have some feeling about wanting her to be alive. So funny to watch. These kind of sociopaths, narcissistic sociopaths, make up excuses or try to act normally or try to make their behavior look normal.
From Mama JF live in front of me that she wanted to go away. As far as I'm concerned, she's still in a trip. She's still out there just tripping. And I'm not going to publish her image because I don't know whether she consents to it. I'm not going to name her name because I don't know if she consents to it. If she wants to call me and say, JF, I want to be found, or JF, I...
Right, but you didn't care about what your third ex-wife consented to as far as the child you had together. She set up a whole way you could visit with right, and make contact with the kid, but you were kept saying you were going to take the child that you were totally barred from seeing the child. Go back to where I go through the court records. Not only were you totally crazy, the psychologist was totally alarmed by your psychological makeup and the things you were saying. You were determined to kidnap the child and take it back to Canada. You didn't care about your ex-wife's consent when she had to give birth with armed guards around her under an assumed name because you wanted to take the baby without her consent. You didn't care about consent then. You didn't care about consent with the 19-year-old intellectually challenged woman you had in your house in North Carolina, where the police had to break in and take her back to her parents. You didn't care about if she could consent because the court determined that she had the mental capacity of a 10 or 11-year-old. That's someone who can't consent, but now you're Mr. Consent?
I don't want to be found. She could do it, and she can do it. So yeah, what I said in my tweet is, if you guys want to help the police, and you've seen Mama JF somewhere, you've seen her at a gas station, you've seen someone who looks like her, you just call the police or check my tweet, and you will find a Proton Mail email address. If you don't want to be in contact with the police, just send me an email and I can relay any information that I think is relevant or factual. I'm not going to relay trolling, so you guys can already forget the idea of trolling me. I'm going to relay what seems to be important, but it's probably Mama JF is out there having fun. Probably exposing herself to huge risks. You know, the risks of street life and anonymous life. When no one is there to care for you, you are at risk because no one knows. No one knows if someone has raped.
Right. Something else could have happened to her. That's what he's floating out there. Something else far, far away. She lived a risky lifestyle. She was doing something very risky. And obviously it happened far, far away from me.
You and just put your body in a ditch and no one is there to check. That's the consequence of anonymity. That's the consequence of having no one. That is the cost of liberty. But we've chosen to, and Mama JF has fully chosen to run with that cost. So it's like she has her husband right here, ready to care for her, ready to give her security and comfort and not demanding anything from her. She chose to expose herself to whatever risk it is. And
did you guys hear that? Did you hear what he was willing to provide? Comfort, security. But where's love, right? Love, affection. That's not part of the things that he provides. Let's hear that again. And I think I'm going to cut this off at 9 o'clock. So even this is a super, super long hangout, even for me.
Someone has raped you and just put your body in a ditch and no one is there to check. That's the consequence of anonymity. That's the consequence of having no one. That is the cost of liberty. But we've chosen to, and Mama JF has fully chosen to run with that cost. So it's like she has her husband right here.
So doesn't that sound like well, if she did die, she died doing what she loved. That's what I hear. What do you guys hear?
Here, ready to care for her, ready to give her security and comfort and not demanding anything from her. She chose to expose herself to whatever risk it is, and she totally has the right.
He didn't demand anything of her except total obedience. But she decided to expose herself to the risk. Wow, I would really love to know what this all means. But does it sound like one way you could look at it is she exposed herself to risk when she decide to take the kids, right, and say, I'm leaving.
To do so. Shadow Ban says, if someone could get away with murder, it's JF. But if someone could get away with faking their death, it's Mama JF. That is absolutely correct. I mean, you have found an interesting duality right here. Absolutely. Totally the style of Mama JF to basically fake her death or to just disappear in a way that she can switch identity.
Really? Because the clip I saw, someone asked her what nationality she was, and she said she couldn't even answer that. But she's a master of, she's like Fletch. She's a master of disguise. So over the top, unbelievable. But if you don't, you know, JF's fans are on board. Some of them are on board full time. And they will insult anyone who doesn't believe this. Doesn't buy this bunch of nonsense. See, we just don't understand their complex personality. Like when I attempt for, this is so long ago. I don't even know what he's called. P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever that guy's called now. But Bad Boy Records. And P. Diddy's like his bio was, it started out to fully understand his complex Scorpio personality. So to fully understand JF's extremely high IQ, male personality. Right? It's kind of like that.
I mean, she's and it's amazing because Mama JF doesn't watch movies like CSI and 007 or she doesn't watch James Bond and gets excited at it, but her life is a James Bond movie of its own. That is what is so amazing.
So we know McCullough, that other YouTuber, live streamer, that was his big signal in his fake live stream that he put up when he killed his pregnant girlfriend. He put up a sign that said 007 and James Bond. I think it's like No Time to Die poster. He put that up right at the time when he was in her apartment committing the crime. Is that what all these references are about? Did it get in JF's subconscious, or was it in his conscious? Is he consciously doing that? Is this a conscious tip of the hat to McCullough?
Holy shit. What a crazy woman. Who, but you know, out of the crazy women who have been in my life, she has always been morally straight, you know. Yes, all of this disappearance is causing some kind of shake-up and chaotic thing in my life. I mean, I'm getting woken up by the feds every morning. They're knocking at my window, and I'm like, what? But I'd much rather this than evil stuff, than attacks on loved ones. I would much rather
attacks on loved ones. So was he attacked? Did Alora attack him? Did he feel like he was attacked? What is he talking about?
The chaotic nature of Mama JF, but with a kind of moral pillar to it, than anything else, anything more evil. Forex says, often when worried families get the state involved to save or help someone, they make it significantly worse for the person. There is very little help the state can give to a person against their own will. That is very wise.
Yeah, like what? When has the state made it worse for someone in crisis? Or that was lost? Yeah, don't you remember all those rescue attempts that maybe if it's a hostage situation or something, I don't know. But missing person situation, when people started looking for them, it got worse. They're saying that she's maybe like now too high profile and she's going to be gotten rid of. I mean, that would be a better excuse, right, for JF not to put out her picture or name in case she's kidnapped. That would have been, don't want to give him any ideas.
And that is what I was telling the policeman, you know, wherever Mama JF is, it was our choice to be there, and it was our choice to run these risks. And she would hate it to hear that all of these people are looking for her. So now there's a whole national campaign.
Why would she hate it? She didn't seem like a shy person. You know, we constantly saw her coming into the frame and interacting with the chat. And even you, I think at one point he even says in one of these interviews that she's very social and that she'll be amongst people. But not in this story, not in this version of the story. That develops later on. In the beginning, she's out alone in the woods, fully going into the wild. Then it becomes an urban hiking. She's going to be amongst people, right?
To find Mama JF. And I will ask Mama JF and you guys, just to calm all these people, can you please collaborate? Like, go ahead and just if you've seen Mama JF alive and you can reassure everyone and you can calm these people and you can make so the feds don't knock on my door on an everyday basis, that would be very appreciated. As far as I know from this investigation, as far as my interaction with the police, I'm
really sorry, guys. It's starting to get glitchy.
They are not interested in any form of persecution of me, of Mama JF. They are just interested at establishing that Mama JF is alive. So Mama JF, if you hear this, you have a chance there to calm all these people down. Only with a word from you, I'm sure.
Right. He wants them to calm all these people down, not calm him down, not assure him because he has no worries, or her family doesn't have any worries, or her friends have no worries. He's like, just get these investigators off my back. Wild, wild, wild. Beverly Lawyer says, whoa, dog. Yeah, it's wild, right? What do you guys think? You think this is going to be solved? And do you think that he is making it absolutely necessary for an interview not to talk about the subject? Or was this guy it's so out there? My boyfriend says it's like interviewing Da Vinci and asking him about golf. I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't find him particularly interesting, but maybe his fans do. I don't know why you would need an interview to find out these things. He's done like 1 million live streams, but okay. Sergeant Oink Wyson says, even the most ardent Alawag, is that what that is? Of JF wants Allura to be okay and doubt if she is, and will probably continue to follow this up. Yeah. Yeah, like I would love to know where this investigation is. I think you should be really afraid of cadaver dogs, even if it happened in the home or happened anywhere in that vicinity. But I think this story about dropping her off in front of cameras has got to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I mean, who's ever done that? Okay, I'm going to drop you off at the airport. Oh, you have a flight to Paris? Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that I drop you off in front of the airport cameras in case you don't come back from this trip and I'm a suspect. Who thinks like that? And if you're thinking like that, wouldn't you give her something to protect herself? In North Carolina, he had a lot of guns. I don't know about Canada. She is the story, not him, Sinclair. Reid says, yeah, absolutely. And that bothers him. She's a fugitive. You don't understand, investigators. You're wasting your time. She's going to just frustrate you, and it's going to end up being fruitless, is what he's saying. I'm just really afraid that if this gets solved, it will take a long, long time. And of course, you have a legal system over there that I would think would be pretty defendant friendly. I hear, I ran into one Canadian. So someone's telling me about Canadian that they know who loved being in prison. He said it was the greatest time. It was like the Trailer Park Boys. You know how Trailer Park Boys always love being in prison? It was so great. They were treated so well. He hated coming home. I don't know if that's an exaggeration or true, but it always makes me laugh. All right. Well, that's what I have for tonight. This has been over 2 hours long. If you've listened all the way through, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll get some news very soon. And I hope Alora is found safe. But I'm not hopeful. Have a great night, everyone.